Welcome to the Daily AI News Digest. Today is Monday, May 18th, 2026. This broadcast is sponsored by bestai.org. Let's look at today's market realities. In this explainer, we're tracking accelerated capital realignments, distinct architectural departures in new models, and the competing federal regulations shaping the industry. Here's how we're breaking down the data today. We'll start with the biggest market moves, shift into product and model realities, review the latest regulation and policy signals, offer an analyst take on what it all means, and wrap up with our market watch for the days ahead. Section 1. Biggest market moves today. We're focusing right now on capital flow and valuations. Anthropic's latest fundraising round is on track for an end-of-May close, and it carries a $900 billion valuation. This $30 billion round is co-led by Sequoia and Green Oaks. The math supporting that valuation indicates Q1 annual recurring revenue is up 80 times year over year. That pushes their ARR above $44 billion. They now have over 1,000 customers spending more than $1 million annually. The core takeaway here is the pressure. An implied multiple at a $900 billion valuation places extraordinary expectations on their upcoming model capability roadmap to justify that cost. Moving over to xAI, the valuation picture looks quite different following its all-stock merger with SpaceX. The xAI portion of that merger is valued at $250 billion, creating a combined $1.25 trillion entity. Now, the stated rationale for this merger heavily involves integrating orbital data centers and Starlink infrastructure with large language model reasoning. But looking at the financial reality, this merger also provided xAI investors a clear path to liquidity through SpaceX's anticipated public offerings, insulating the AI firm from direct public market volatility. That $250 billion valuation, however, sits alongside significant leadership volatility. Of the 12 original founders who launched xAI back in 2023, only 2 remain today. Key architects, including Jimmy Ba and Tony Wu, departed amid reported tensions over the pace of model performance gains and the demanding work culture. This level of executive turnover is a critical metric for institutional investors, as it raises legitimate questions about the continuity of their core reasoning and coding models. Section 2. Product and model realities. We're tracking specific architectural shifts and the latest benchmarks. The trend this May is a clear pivot away from raw intelligence scaling toward architectural efficiency. We aren't seeing new intelligence ceilings broken this week. Instead, we're seeing targeted engineering. Subquadratic SubQ1M introduces a 12 million token native context window built specifically for repository-wide code and legal analysis. Over at OpenAI, they've made GPT-5.5 Instant the new default model for ChatGPT. They're prioritizing lower latency and fewer hallucinations for general-purpose reasoning while holding steady with an intelligence index score of 60. And at the top end, we're tracking a completely new architecture from Thinking Machines Lab. To define exactly what Thinking Machines Lab, which was founded by former OpenAI CTO Mira Murati, has deployed, they call it an interaction model. Rather than wrapping a standard language model in an external voice activity detection harness, which is what typically causes conversational pauses, this 276 billion parameter mixture of experts model processes audio, video, and text continuously in 200 millisecond microturns. It's an encoder-free, early fusion architecture. The model actually learns to listen, speak, and pause natively, achieving a self-reported turn-taking latency of just 0.4 seconds. Section 3. Regulation and policy signals. We are closely monitoring competing federal frameworks currently clashing in Washington. We essentially have 2 primary approaches on the table. On the left, there's the White House National Policy Framework. It advocates a light-touch approach utilizing existing agencies, it calls for federal preemption to block states from passing a patchwork of their own AI laws, and it notably defers the highly contested issue of copyright fair use to the courts. On the right, we have Senator Marsha Blackburn's TRIP America AI Act. This is a highly prescriptive, 291-page discussion draft. It aggressively alters the liability landscape, proposing the revocation of Section 230 immunity after 2 years, and explicitly declares that unauthorized use of copyrighted material for AI training does not constitute fair use. Looking closely at the specific requirements within the Blackburn draft, beyond revoking Section 230, it imposes a strict duty of care on AI chatbot developers. It fully integrates the Kids Online Safety Act and enacts the NO Fakes Act to protect against unauthorized digital voice and visual replicas. Furthermore, developers would have to prove by clear and convincing evidence that their AI systems do not incorporate copyrighted expression. It also mandates annual third-party audits for political bias. This represents a significant proposed shift in developer liability. Section 4. The analyst's take. Here is why these concurrent capital, technical, and legal developments matter for the business landscape right now. Let's address the XAI situation through Elon Musk's own candid admission. The cold business reality here is that Grok's coding capabilities were falling behind Anthropic's Claude code and OpenAI's Codex on key benchmarks. Musk's response to the exodus of his original research founders wasn't simply to hire more researchers. Instead, he brought in two of the most senior engineers from Cursor, a company that built a highly successful developer product. The strategy indicates XAI is pivoting from a pure focus on model architecture to aggressively rebuilding the actual developer product experience, with a strict target to exceed competitors by mid-2026.
This macro shift is also evident in enterprise adoption. Publicis Group just acquired the data platform LiveRamp for over $2 billion in cash. This is a clear market indicator. The advertising and enterprise sectors are moving toward agentic marketing, where autonomous AI agents handle complex sales and outreach. But for these agents to function effectively, they require highly unified and legally compliant data assets. This acquisition indicates that enterprise value is migrating from just the AI models themselves to the proprietary data pipelines that feed them.
Finally, Section 5, Market Watch and Outro. Here is what institutional investors are looking at over the next 48 hours. Tomorrow, May 19th, is the Google I/O keynote. The market expects the reveal of Gemini 4.0 and the formal introduction of Aluminum OS. The key data point to watch is whether Google's benchmarks can match the 94.6% GPQA scores recently achieved by frontier models. If they do, it confirms a definitive tie among the top three labs. Then, on Wednesday, May 20th, we have NVIDIA's Q1 fiscal year 2027 earnings. Consensus sits at roughly $78 billion in revenue. The critical metrics to monitor here are their gross margins and hard evidence of the Blackwell chip shipment ramp. Which leaves us with the central question for the week. Will Google's software and model releases at I/O be enough to reclaim the industry narrative, or will NVIDIA's hard infrastructure and data center revenue numbers ultimately dictate the market's trajectory for the rest of Q2? The answers to those questions will define the valuations we report on next week. That concludes today's explainer of the intelligence economy. For full transcripts of this broadcast, deeper market data, and ongoing coverage of these developments, please visit our sponsor at best-ai.org. Thank you for your time today. Keep tracking the data, and we will see you next time.